Hello everyone. The topic that we chose for our presentation is mangroves. This presentation is done by Simran Kankonkar, Stella D'sauza, Saili Kalangutkar, Tanvi Joshi and Vikesh Gaonkar. The reason for choosing this topic is to create some awareness about our environment, our nature and specifically mangroves. About 40% of mangrove forests in west coast of India have been converted into farmlands and housing colonies over the last 3 decades. Before we go forward with the topic, let's start with the basics.
What are mangroves? Mangroves are the unique intertidal forests at the edge of land and sea. These are the plants that grow in tidal areas. Tidal areas means where ocean meets the land. Mainly, mangroves grow in tropical and coastal swamps. They have numerous tangled roots that grow above ground and form a dense thickets, that is, group of bushes or trees. The word mangrove can describe a single plant or it can refer to a whole community of plants. They are halophytes, that is, they are salt loving. As we all know, most plants cannot survive in salty conditions, but here it's the opposite. Mangroves start growing in salty conditions. The word mangroves is derived from Portuguese language, wherein mang, which means tree, and grove, which is used for trees and shrubs that are found in shallow, sandy, or muddy areas.
Another thing that we need to know about mangroves is where do mangroves grow? Mangroves grow only in the tropics and subtropics. So we find mangroves in tropical and subtropical areas where there is regular rainfall and these areas do not come in direct contact of the sunlight. Basically these areas are moist areas, can be also called as moist forests. They do not tolerate cold temperatures well. So this means that if there is cold temperature, mangroves cannot grow in such areas. Freezing temperature will kill them. If the temperature is quite low, then mangroves will start dying. So these are the conditions where mangroves cannot grow. On the left hand of the screen, we can see a map wherein some areas are marked in green. So these are the areas where mangroves grow all around the world. So as we can make out, it is on the border of the land and it is near the water. Mangroves grow best in sheltered areas with low wave energy. This means that areas where there is no direct contact of the sunlight and there are very low waves or very low tides. High wave energies destroy the shallow root system of the mangroves. If there are high waves, the roots of the mangroves will get destroyed. Strong wave action also prevents seedling establishment and the buildup of fine sediments they need for the growth. So, if there are high tides or high waves, which we call, the growth of seed into a plant won't take place. So, basically, what we can make out from all these points is that humid climate is required for the growth of the mangroves. We can find mangroves in humid climate.
In the next two slides, we are going to see types of mangroves. First one is red mangroves. Grow along edge of shoreline in harshest conditions. They have tangled reddish prop roots. Second one, black mangroves. They have long horizontal roots. They have very high salt tolerance. The bark of this mangrove is dark and scaly. And the third one is white mangroves. The white mangroves has no visible aerial roots. They are mostly found in lower salinity areas. Fourth one is buttonwood mangroves. Name buttonwood comes from the button-like appearance of the dense flower heads that grow in clusters forming cone-like fruit.
Next topic is importance of mangroves. Biological diversity. They provide food, nesting, breeding grounds and nursery areas for many animals, which include at least 200 over fish species, 20 reptiles and amphibian species, 15 mammal species including tigers and over 150 bird species. Remove the mangroves and many of these species might be driven to extinction, invariably affecting us as source of food and water and many other ways. Environmental protection. Mangrove protect the coastline by acting as wave break. They stabilize coastlines and serve as natural barriers or protectors against huge storms, preserving coastlines. They act as windbreaks which reduce the force of winds, lowering the chances of property getting destroyed in windstorms. Retain, concentrate, and recycle nutrients, and also trap sediments, excess nutrients, and toxicants through their natural filtering processes. And this improves water quality of tidal rivers that drain through the mangroves. Mangroves also help us to breathe a clean air by absorbing pollutants in the air. Provides resources. The mangroves provide us with food and water, medicinal herbs, timber, fuel, fodder, and other materials. Reduce the devastating impact of tsunamis and coastal storms. Dense mangrove forests growing along the coasts of tropical and subtropical countries can help reduce the devastating impacts of tsunamis and coastal storms by absorbing some of the waves' energy. When the tsunami struck India's southern state of Tamil Nadu on 26 December, for example, areas in Pichavaram and Muppet with dense mangroves suffered fewer human casualties and less damage to property compared to areas without mangroves. Mangroves protect the soil from erosion. The dense roots of mangroves helps to bind and build soils. They slow down water flows, encourage the deposition of sediments and reduce erosion.
I am going to speak on the topic how are mangroves exploited? Despite their critical importance, mangroves are disappearing at an alarming rate around the world. In spite of great advantages and importance of the mangroves to the ecosystem and nature around us, these mangroves are being destroyed and are being cut at a fastest rate all over the world. Human development, industrial activity, and aquaculture are rapidly replacing the salt-tolerant trees and the ecosystem they support. Humans have been getting various opportunities to develop in various ways, as well as to develop the country that they live in by developing the various resources. And as these resources are being developed, a lot of industrial activities are coming up, for which these salt-tolerant trees are being destroyed and are being cut by the human beings itself. As well as the aquaculture has also been a factor leading to destruction of mangroves. Aquaculture involves breeding, raising, harvesting fish, and some aquatic plants. Basically, it is like farming in water. and this has in a way contributed to the destruction of mangroves. In just last decade, 35% of the mangroves have been destroyed. 35% of the mangroves have been destroyed in just previous decade. And this goes without saying that remaining 75% will be at stake. Moving on to the next slide. Destroying the mangroves results in changes such as coastal erosion. Destruction in mangroves led to some unwelcome changes in the ecosystem, such as there is erosion that is happening in coastal areas, which means the loss of land or the removal of sediments or rocks that is being happening due to imbalance in the export of materials from certain section of the lands. Mangrove forests are deteriorating due to overexploitation, deforestation, land reclamation, and pollution. Mangrove forests are deteriorating due to various factors such as overexploitation of resources, deforestation, land reclamation, and pollution. So, overexploitation for timber has been one of the factors of destruction of mangroves. The next factor we have is deforestation, cutting of these plants and cutting of these mangroves. Pollution also has in a way caused in the destruction of these salt tolerant mangroves. What is land reclamation? Land reclamation is the gain of land from the sea or the wetlands and restoration of used lands that have been degraded by human activities. It is generally used to describe the process of making lands suitable for more intensive purpose of land by means of cultivation, irrigation, drainage, or the like. Moving on to the last point. Large areas of mangroves have been cleared for fish and shrimp farming. So, large number of areas have also been cleared for fish and shrimp farming. Now, what is shrimp farming? Shrimp farming is an aquaculture business that exists in either marine or freshwater environment to produce shrimp or prawns.
The next topic that we will speak on is how can we save mangroves from getting exploited? There are several ways in which we can save mangroves. One of them is afforestation. Next is legalization, wherein you bring about new laws and rules which are related to a saving of mangroves. Then monitoring and surveying. You monitor and survey how the mangroves are growing and what is currently happening in and around the mangrove region. Next are protection or like converting those areas into conservation reserves development and following soil conservation so that the mangroves can grow well and increasing awareness of local public services about the services and goods that mangroves provide. So it is basically about educating the local public about the mangroves and about the benefits mangroves related to mangroves. Then you can plant mangroves at suitable places. It is again related to afforestation, wherein you plant mangroves and you have to plant them in suitable places. Next, imposing high fines for cutting down mangroves, again related to legislation, bringing out laws. It could also mean like, bringing out rules and laws in which the person who cuts down mangroves or organization or whatever
whoever is cutting down mangroves, high fine should be imposed on them, or getting support from a non-governmental foundation to help organization meet a management plan for the area. Next, why is saving of mangroves important? What happens if mangroves get destroyed? First, there will be ecosystem degradation. That is, all of us are related to each other, like living organisms with the natural environment around. So these mangroves, as we have seen earlier, play a huge role in conserving the soil, in purifying the water, and different things. But when these mangroves are destroyed, they are not there in the picture. The bad effects of it take place, and it will lead to degradation of the ecosystem. Second is species endangerment. We saw that it is a hub for biodiversity. So with no mangroves, the species which live there go into endangerment. Loss of wetlands. Then, since we saw that how the mangroves help to protect and protect us from floods, without the mangroves, automatically there will be floods and problems in water quality. Next, let us look at our own state, mangroves in Goa. I'm pretty sure, like most of you, have been to Mangroves Broadwalk in Panjim. But the situation is mangroves in Goa are most vulnerable, especially the ones found along the coast of Mandovi and Zuari rivers. And the mangrove species, like the species including flora, fauna, like fish, birds, and all the species living in and around the mangroves are under threat. So we need to come together, follow the steps that we mentioned about, bring about a change and save the mangroves. The references?